Okay, thank you. Hi, everyone, and welcome to our presentation, Trust the Climb, a guide to establishing and managing a quality online framework. So before we begin getting into the presentation, we wanted to start off just with a opening activity to kind of get a feel for how you guys all feel about your current course development process. So if you could please scan the QR code or use the link that Beth has shared in the chat and select one of the emojis that it represents how you feel with your course build process right now at the time that you are joining us. So I'll go down here and we'll be able to see as people start submitting their responses. All right, some of us are excited. That's great. Yep, thinking no scared faces yet. So I guess that's a good sign.
That is a good sign. That's a good start. But it's
Yes.
okay if you're scared, because we're
It's
going to
okay.
help you today. That's what we're all about.
Yep, the pressure and the sound, that's how Beth and I have felt at times when we were developing this process. So certainly,
absolutely,
we feel you.
Yeah.
All right, so yeah, it seems we have an array of different experiences and feelings about where we currently are with our own course build process at our own organizations. And so what we're going to go over today is really just our process, and hopefully it can help you. So I'm going to hand it over to Beth, and she's going to introduce everything.
Excellent. Thanks so much, Michelle. And hello, everyone today. My name is Beth Bailey. I'm an instructional designer with West Virginia University. And specifically, Michelle and I are with the College of Physical Activity and Sports Sciences. I've been with WVU since the fall of 2019. And prior to my current position, I was with Penn State as an instructional designer for around 20 years. I earned a BA in Communication Studies from Bloomsburg University and an MS from Bloomsburg as well in Instructional Technologies.
And hello, everyone. My name is Michele Korgeski, and I'm an instructional designer with Beth at West Virginia University in the College of Physical Activity and Sports Sciences. I began working at WVU 2 years ago, and before that, I was a collegiate athletic trainer and faculty instructor at Mansfield University. I also attended Bloomsburg University, where I received my master's degree in instructional technologies and other degrees in athletic training and exercise science. So before we begin this presentation, we felt that we wanted to give you guys a little bit of a background on how we got here. Initially, when COVID-19 began and we had to quickly move all of our courses to an online setting, it forced us to take a look at the instructional supports that we had in place for our online teaching faculty. We had to quickly repurpose those pre-existing supports so that way they could guide our course builders and instructors that were new to teaching and developing online.
Throughout that experience, we realized that in order to truly focus on quality online instruction, we needed to make some changes to our existing structure. We needed to create a set and streamlined online quality framework. We formalized our process, which is what we'll be sharing with you today. And we formalized it into the way of resources that could be expanded to all of our current and future course builders and online instructors for our college. We wanted to create a common framework from which to inspire and maintain a culture based on quality, consistency, and a positive, engaging student and instructor experience. From design through publishing and everything in between, we stepped out each phase of the process with a keen eye towards what would work for our situation while focusing on quality.
And just like our WVU football coaches who created the Trust the Climb slogan for their new coaching philosophy, we felt we were in a very similar situation with our faculty and asking them to trust us. So with their trust, we were able to innovate and apply positive changes to all of our online courses that directly improve the students' experience, which is our overarching goal.
And that brings us to today. I just put what Michelle is sharing on the screen in the chat. We submitted a proposal for a poster to the Quality Matters Conference in November of 2021, and we were so honored to be asked to present today to you. Our poster then and our presentation today focuses on a trek through our process. Perhaps you're an instructional designer with a team of people to support you and your online course development, or you may be solo on your own as a faculty member, designer/developer. You may be starting off in a new organization without a set online course development process, or maybe some of you are just looking to reset a bit. So whatever it may be, we're here to help you improve your existing process with an eye towards quality. No matter what your situation is, our goal for this presentation is the same, and that is to present our guide to establishing and managing and maintaining an online quality framework, so that no matter what your situation is, you can take what you need from this presentation and apply it to your own organization. Throughout our presentation, feel free to scan the QR codes that you encounter along the trail. They will take you to different resources that we are discussing. Many of these resources have Google Docs that you are welcome to access and repurpose as you need. Please know that we'll be sharing the link to the poster at the conclusion of the presentation as well. So even if you don't catch it now in the chat, you can catch it later as well.
Perfect. So by the end of this presentation, you guys will be able to visualize a quality framework and apply consistencies to your courseware, identify different communication and engagement strategies that you can deploy within your university or organization, and then access different artifacts of our process. As Beth said, we're going to highlight different quality components at each mile marker of our overarching process. And each phase, we're going to break down what those quality components that we use in order to make sure that our courses are, developed in the way that we want them to. So I'm going to hand things over to Beth, and she's going to start with our first phase, which is our design phase.
Thanks so much, Michele. So as Michele just said, our first stop is the design phase, and this is where we're going to share our approach to designing content for online courses. The quality components of our design phase are our core content and our process that includes a course questionnaire and a blueprint. First, the core content. Our approach to creating online courses is to contract out to a single course builder, an expert in the topic or the field that the course is covering. Working closely with an instructional designer like Michele and I, this course builder designs and creates the core content and the assessments. So to us, this means that no matter how many sections are being taught, perhaps by several different instructors, in the same term, we will have one copy of the course content that we'll link out to from our learning management system. With this core content approach, we've found that we establish quality and consistency, which is really key throughout our courses in their respective online programs. So the first part is the course questionnaire. And this asks course builders to gather their thoughts on their course through this survey. We distribute it in Qualtrics, and we ask them to locate materials they may already have. And we also ask them to kick off the process by dreaming about what do they really want their learners to know or to be able to do at the end of the course. And as you see in the sample here, we took some screenshots of this, but we also have this available as a Google Doc at the end that you can access. But it's quite simple. We're asking them to think about, what are the overall learning outcomes, maybe 4 or 5 broad statements of what you want those students to do or be able to do or know at the end of the course. And everything stems from there. So from there, then we think about, what are some activities that you want your students to engage in? Will they be team-based or individual? What are some of the materials that you may be repurposing from another course that might be similar, or a course that perhaps they have offered face-to-face in the past? What are some grading structure ideas that they have? So it's just kind of setting the stage for thinking about what types of things they want to include in their course, whether they have fee-based general resources such as textbooks, or perhaps they want to focus on more open educational resources. So this is where we get all the wheels in motion. Now, next is the blueprint. And as you can imagine with the title like blueprint, this is where we are creating the course structure and the foundation of quality to every course that we build. We refer back to this blueprint several times throughout the design and development process. And the blueprint can help synthesize what may seem like a very overwhelming process of planning an entire term or semester ahead of time. That question of what do you want your students to know or be able to do is revisited again, and it's broken down into module objectives, assessments, and resources. As shown in this sample here, and again, this is another artifact that we'll leave with you at the end of the presentation, but as shown here, we go to those overall course objectives, and then we break those down into module objectives. But even before we get to that point, we use that backwards design and we look at the overall course assessment, whether it's a final project that they're working on module by module or week by week. Perhaps it's a group project, or perhaps even a final exam. But whatever it might be, we want to make sure that the modules are preparing them for that final or overall course assessment. As you see here, here's an example of a module breakdown. We happen to use a 6-module model. Most of our courses are 8 weeks. Sometimes they're 6, sometimes they're 7. It's hard to judge based on the university calendar. But what we've decided is that we have 6 modules of content, and then we have some stretch time to work on projects and such if we have some extra time in that particular semester. But as you see here, we have the module title, topics that are related to that module. We ask the course builder to describe what they want their students to know or do at the end of the module. And then we ask them to create learning objectives, which we work very closely with them on that if that's not something that they're comfortable with yet. We come up with assessments with them, graded and ungraded, readings and media. And the key with this particular table is that, as you can see, it's laid out so that you can see the objectives and relate the assessments, readings, and media. So it's kind of like a mini check within this document so that they can visually see how those objectives are related to all of the things we have them do in the course. So that is our module, our blueprint. All these components, the questionnaire and the blueprint, are in the design phase, and they create that structure and they inspire that culture based on quality for the student and the course builder and instructor experience right from the very beginning. So that's our first stop on our trail. Now Michelle is going to take you to the next stop, which is the develop phase.
Thanks, Beth. So the develop phase is, as you would imagine, it's the process of actually developing and creating that material. Using your reaction button in Zoom, how many of you guys have, throw a thumbs up or raise a hand? How many of you guys struggle with getting actual content from your course builders or faculty member, aside from just an old-fashioned PowerPoint? Yeah, so I'm seeing some people definitely run into that situation. And that's something Beth and I found to be, when we first started this, to be one of the biggest challenging things of how to help those course builders curate the material without, constantly getting nothing back from them or stuff that you really aren't looking to use. And so that's why we created tools in this develop phase here to help assist them with that process. So here's a QR code for the develop phase if you want to explore our resource. And like Beth said earlier, we're going to share a QR code at the end that has access to all of these artifacts and everything like that if you want to take a look at it at another time. So within our develop phase, we have 2 quality components that really structure and make sure that we're keeping everything in line as we're developing stuff. As you would imagine, this phase takes a lot of time within your course build timeline. So having these tools really helps us make sure that we're staying on track. And we're making sure that we're reiterating the quality within our course development. So these 2 include the module template and the course review checklist. And we're going to take a closer look at those right now. So to start off with, our module template. So essentially, this is a centralized location for the course builder to kind of tunnel in and focus on the content and material the students are going to experience each week of the course. As Beth said earlier with the blueprint, that instructor or course builder has been given time and taken time to really look at the framework and structure of the course. So they've already had that task and they've already had the allotted time to focus on that area. Now they're just taking that framework and applying it and filling in the area or the blanks, or giving it some material with the module template. So we have some screenshots of our module template, and we'll walk you through this here. And as Beth said, this is an artifact that you guys will all have access to after the presentation. So the first thing with this is our welcome or introduction. And this is just an area for our course builders to kind of welcome the students to that module. Maybe, connect the module to a previous module and give them a brief overview of what they're going to see. It's important to know that this template directly relates to how we lay out the course within our RISE content. So just as you see here, this is the first item that you see in the template. When you go into our course content, the first item the students will see is this, and it kind of follows uniform. So the next thing after the welcome is listing out the learning objectives. We're in a university setting, so it's important for us to list right up in the beginning for the students what they're going to know or what they'll be expected to know by the end of this module. The next item is listing out the required reading, media, and assignments. So again, since we're in that university setting, all of our students, they want to get A's on their assessments in order to get a good, successful grade in their course. And so by listing out what they're required to read, required to watch or listen to, and then the assessments they're required to take, right in the beginning of the module is imperative for us. So one of the things that with that blueprint that Beth showed you guys earlier is that our course builders are able to really make sure that our required reading and media and our assessments directly relate to the learning objectives. So this is an area where we list out those required items. However, there will be optional items that will be trickled throughout the course content if a student should want to explore something a little bit further. And then the next item that we highlight is the content. So this is the area where we give our course builders complete creative freedom. We always are looking for different ways to deliver the material to the students. This is the area where we say to course builders, imagine that you were in the classroom with the students. What would you talk to the students? What would you present on or try to create conversations about with your students in the classroom? And we try to best replicate that within our course content. As I said earlier, we use RISE for our course content. So we provide them a little layout so that way they can start to visualize how the topics and subtopics will lay out within RISE itself. And then we as instructional designers use our creativity to apply that material as we build out the courses. And then the final component of our module template is the module summary. So this is where you kind of wrap everything back in. You give that last 5 minutes of a lecture where you tie everything together. It's a brief statement. It might be a video or an audio clip, but this is just really where you summarize what the students learned and maybe give them a little preview of what they're going to see in the next upcoming module. And then, as I said earlier, we do include optional resources and tools and readings and videos and everything that we could find. And so this is where we would also list out any of that optional material or additional resources or references from our course content that we have developed earlier. So that's pretty much our module template as a whole. And what our course builders do is they really focus on that as they create one module at a time. And since we have a 6-module layout, they'll work on module 1 all the way through 6 and revise the content as they see how it comes alive in RISE. The next item on our quality item within this phase is our course review checklist. And so this is a tool that's actually used by the instructional designers. So for us, it's Beth and I that are really relying on this tool. And so as I said earlier, this phase takes a lot of time. This might be weeks at 8-10 weeks where you're developing this content with the course builder. So this tool here allows Beth and I a way to make sure that we are keeping on track with what we're developing and that everything that we're putting together follows these quality standards and framework that we've created initially when we started this process. So here's a little brief sample of some parts of this checklist. First is just some general information for our courses. In our program, we have 3 master's online programs. So having this stuff to keep everything organized is vital. Then we have some information about our course syllabi. So we make sure that everything's in place the way it should be based on what we've created with that template for our syllabus, which reflects the quality standards and best practices within our field. The next thing is our orientation and getting started materials. So again, we have a lot of this stuff already created, but across the span of all this time during this develop phase, this tool here really makes sure that we have everything in place, everything's operating and was checked the way that it should be. The next item is our course menu or our outer shell within our LMS, and then the content area within our inner shell in our LMS. We've created a certain layout and framework. So again, it's just making sure that everything's the way that it needs to be, which is really the use of this checklist. So it's something that we'll fill out as we're going or at the end before we copy a course over to go live. And then the last thing, as we trickle down the steps of this organization, is our learning modules. So making sure that our content and everything is appropriate, that all of our accessibility checks have been put in place, and that these standards that we expect of our courses is actually being applied and set. So that's the last component of quality checks within this phase. And overall, all of these components really just help make sure that our course content, our assessments, and our course schedule all is in line and following those quality standards that we really are looking for within our courses. So next I'm going to hand things over to Beth, and she's going to take you on to the next part of our hike, which is our deliver phase.
All right, we are traveling along. Thanks so much, Michele. So stopping off at the deliver phase on our trail, we will showcase our frameworks and content and share some of the ways that we ask our teaching instructors to engage with their learners and keep on track with delivering and managing their courses. And going through this process, Michele and I have commented several times that up front, it's a framework that it took some time to develop and such, and that's why we wanted to share it with others, because it's something that once you have that framework in place, you can easily design and develop courses. There's still always challenges with any course build, but because you have that framework in place, you know that you're doing everything based on quality. So it's kind of like an extra check. So anyway, you may recall from that design and develop phase that we use that common core content approach. And that's to allow for consistency for students throughout our online programs and for the teaching instructor to put all of their focus on nothing but engaging with the students and giving timely and thoughtful feedback with grading. Our instructors have plenty of opportunities to add in their own voice and personal experience when they teach, and they do that through announcements and emails and discussion forum responses, as well as asynchronous or synchronous opportunities that they choose to partake in. In this phase, in this deliver phase, we're going to share with you the following quality framework components. This is the outer framework and inner framework. We use Blackboard, just to give you a heads up on what we use. I saw something in the chat. We use Blackboard for our course delivery as our learning management system, and Articulate Rise to deliver our content within the LMS. We're also going to get into content delivery a little bit and also communication strategies, as I mentioned just a minute ago. So first off, that outer framework. The outer framework highlights a standard navigational structure within our LMS from course to course. In the outer framework, which is our left navigation menu, we've grouped similar items in the following categories: content, communication, resources, planning, and program. Now, this familiar and consistent structure allows the students ease of navigation, of finding what they need when they need it. From day one, and no matter what course they are in within our online program, we want our students to be able to just jump right into the learning experience rather than worrying about where to find things. So feel free to show in the reactions with an emoji if you've ever reviewed or been in a course that was a little bit more of a scavenger hunt than a learning experience. I think we may have all experienced that at some point or another. So this is why this framework is so key. So now the inner framework, it revolves around the course design and the module structure. One can access the inner framework from the course content link in the left navigation menu. Each course features a general questions discussion forum for a place where students can quickly ask either the instructor or peers question. And we found throughout using this throughout the past year and a half or so that students start to build their own communities on their own as well, which is an extra bonus. Now, excuse me. So if each course has a semester-long project or a project that spans several modules, that folder is represented next, as you can see. As these projects typically span more than 1 week or one module, we wanted to keep that on a top level part of the navigation so that students didn't have to go hunt for that and then think about, oh, was that in module 1 or module 2 where they introduced that project? And instead, we keep those on the top level so they can find it right away. Next is our course orientation module. And this includes our detailed course orientation, as well as a link to the syllabus. And also we have a orientation quiz that students need to fill out with 100% accuracy to make sure that they've read the syllabus, they've gone through the orientation, they understand what's expected of them before they get started with their module work. Finally, the module folders are next, and they're available on a time-released schedule week by week. These module folders also have a framework as well, as you could imagine. They consistently feature a module checklist. They have a link out to the module content, which again is in Articulate Rise. Module assessments are in our LMS, and we have a printable version of our module content that's also available. Everything learners need for a module is accessible via these folders so that they don't need to spend time hunting. No scavenger hunts here. So next is the module content. And as mentioned on the previous screen, the module folders each feature this link out to the module content. This content is displayed and in a very dynamic way. That's Articulate Rise. If you've used it, actually put it, if you feel, put a reaction in the chat if you have used Articulate Rise. We came upon it a couple of years ago, and we are very much enjoying this tool. It is a way to very accessibly allow for the creation of graphics and content and videos and interactions right within this environment. In fact, the resource that we're using to present today is Articulate Rise. So now the remainder of what follows in the deliver phase, that was the content and the structure and the framework. The remainder of what follows and what I'm going to cover today is the more communication aspect of it. It's the tips, it's the prompts that we give to all of our teaching instructors to ensure that consistency and preparedness to engage with their learners. So it's kind of like a communication framework. First is our instructor guidelines for online instructors. And this is a general list that we share with teaching instructors, and it focuses on communication to promote engaged online teaching. As you can see here, and I'm not going to go through each one, and just so you know, this is another document that you can take with you and repurpose as you need for your own institution. But we talk about, creating an inclusive and respectful learning environment. We talk about establishing a regular schedule early in the course for when you're going to be logging in, so your students will be aware of that as well. Number 3 is really key because we actually have developed that into another document, which we'll get into in a minute, but that's following a managing your online course guideline structure. And that will be the next thing that we have here. This is basically our framework for communication from us, the designers or the program leads, to our instructors, and then from them to the students. So weeks before, we ask them to review that online instructor guidelines document. We ask them to become familiar with the course content and the structure, as well as any technical tools. If they're new to Blackboard, if they're new to working with us, we work with them to make sure they're fully trained. We have them start engaging a week before, sometimes more than a week before, with their students, with welcome emails and introducing themselves. And as you can see here, week 1, we have them, making sure they're setting that stage with the welcome announcement, having them contact students who have not logged in yet. So there's all sorts of things that we have this instructors doing right from the beginning. Daily, we ask them to log into the course at least once a day to monitor the email and discussions. Weekly, we have them continually stay engaged with their students, and we give them some hints along the way. And at the end of the course, we ask for feedback. We ask them to wrap up all communications and so on. Now, you might say, oh, wow, that's a lot of stuff they have to remember. Well, of course, we have a little framework for that too. We send out weekly email newsletters where we focus on different parts of that managing your online course document. So, in this particular week, this was the kickoff. So a lot of our our courses are sport related, being that we're in the College of Physical Activity and Sports Sciences. So we thought we'd kick it off with an opening day baseball theme for this particular one. But as you can see in this document, we focus on some of those tips. So it's not that we're necessarily hounding on them, but we try to encourage them to keep up with the engagement. So that's another part of what we do. You know, we work very heavily with them also with this engaging students document. We ask them to take a look at this document that aligns technology solutions with different approaches. This document came to us as we were searching, as many of us were probably searching through the initial shutdown when many people went online, or all of us went online, who weren't previously online. And we were trying to find different activities and approaches depending on the method of delivery. So as you can see in this document, it's a Google Doc, and there are different goals like communicating with students, discussion, so on and so forth in this document. And what we have is, how can you do this via online synchronous? How can you do this asynchronously? How can you do this as a blend? And then we have a column for tips and tricks and templates. And what we've done with this document is we have customized it for our own tools that we have available to us at WVU. But we received this, it was, I believe, LSU initially created this document. And then I believe we found it, Penn State had added to it as well. So you can take this as well. It's Creative Commons and work with it as you need to for your own personal needs with your own institution. And the reason that we're sharing this is that we ask our teaching instructors to go through this once a term and see if they can pick out one thing that they think would be an engaging tool or an engaging experience for their students. And then they test it out, they see how it works. They give feedback to us, and then we share that with other instructors. So it becomes a community document of sorts that has worked out well for us. Now, that's pretty much all we have for our communication strategies. But again, we want to reiterate that the fact that the quality frameworks, all of the frameworks that we have, but in this case, when they're combined with communication and engagement strategies, they lend themselves to truly connected and confident teaching and learning. And we've felt really comfortable working with our instructors. And going back to the title of our presentation, Trust the Climb, this when our teaching faculty have gone out and used these strategies and they've felt the support from Michele and I, we have gotten feedback that they do feel support and they do feel confident, and then that shows through in their teaching as well. So next up, Michele is going to take you through our evaluate and our revision stop on the trail.
Thanks, Beth. Yeah, so as I saw a question in there within our process. So for our college, we have Beth and I that do all of this. We're the only two IDs within our college at the university. We have resources within university organizations, but one of the key things, and this is why we're sharing all these templates, is that you look at all this and you're like, wow, how do you do all of this? Because it is a lot. And we have found, creating these templates, creating these resources that walk our faculty through stuff and our course builders through things, so that way we don't have to, we're holding their hand, but we don't have to hold it too tight. And that's what really has helped us stay afloat and keep forward looking with all this stuff. So the next part of our trail stop is our evaluate and revise phase. These are two separate phases, but they really go hand in hand. And also, these are the two phases that are going to be very different depending on what your organization and your own resources are. For us, as I said, it's Beth and I. So when we approached this phase and tried to think about how we wanted to create it, we really had to think about, what's feasible for us as we bring on new online programs, forward thinking, what is going to keep us afloat? What's going to be something that we can manage? So as we have had with each stop, here's a QR code if you want to see the resources and look at them on your phone or on another screen on your own. So within this phase, we have 3 different components that we follow and use to make sure that we're keeping quality within our courses. There are instructor and course build survey, our pre-offering checklist, and then our course management report. As I said, this phase is really going to be dependent on your organization and your resources. And as I'm going through the stuff, you'll hear me talk about our program coordinators, because for us, we really rely on the support of our program coordinators to help us manage all of these courses. So some of these things and items that we have in this quality for our quality checks within these phases are things that we don't use so much, but our program coordinators use. And we'll take a closer look at these now. So the first item is our instructor and course builder survey. We have within our programs many courses that are taught by several or with several sections, and those sections have all different instructors. So we might have a course that has 9 different sections with 9 different teaching instructors. So we found one of the great ways for us to make sure that our courses are really put together and constantly being delivered in a way that is the best for our students is by deploying surveys and asking our instructors to keep us in the loop with the content. So what we do is we put together a survey, and here's some sample survey questions that we deploy. But what we do is we ask our course builders and teaching instructors to fill this survey out after the course has been taught. For our course build process, the first time a course is built and then deployed, so the first semester that it's taught, we technically don't close the build until after that semester is completed, and then we get the survey results from our instructors. That way, we're able to immediately address any areas that students might need more explanation on, any areas that maybe didn't work or need to be changed. And then also if there's anything that students really weren't getting, so that way we could look at it and make sure that we're getting the message across. So we deploy the survey to all of our teaching instructors at the end of each term, and they fill it out. And then us and our program coordinators look at the results, and then we together make that decision. Okay, does this course need to be revised, or, is it okay? Likewise, for the courses that have previously gone through a build and we're just looking to continuously make sure we're improving them, our program coordinators deploy these surveys, and they're able to look at the results and let us, it kind of gives them that tick and that note if they need to reach out to instructor to talk about what needs to be addressed within a course. So that brings us to, again, our continuous improvement and checking with our courses. So the next item on our the next quality component item is our pre-offering checklist. So, many of you guys, I'm sure if you want to throw an emoji or reaction out there, but how many of you guys, like, before each term starts, it's always a little bit crazy because you have so many things to quality check, you have so many things to link check, and all of these different programs that you have to try to manage and then copy over to their sections and make sure that they're ready for students day one. We're in that same boat, and with us being such of a small department running all of this stuff for a larger college, we found that this pre-offering checklist is something that's short, sweet, and can be used by really anyone. So this is just an item that we deploy with our program coordinators. Sometimes faculty use it to help us with checks. Sometimes it's graduate assistants that help us with checks. But all it does is it allows them to go through the content and the material for the course and just do a quick check to make sure that everything's working the way it should. If there are links that are broken, I'm sure many of us have experience with constant library links that break or websites that disappear. So if they come across anything like that, they simply fill out this table here, providing the module number, the topic or area that it's found, and then what the broken link is. And then they submit that to Beth or I, usually 1 to 2 weeks before our term begins. And that gives us enough time to get in there, make these changes, and then deploy the course so that way it's ready for students day one. As you can see, this is just a brief check. This isn't that thorough look of the content and looking for revisions. So this is something that allows us to make sure that courses that aren't through that build process but have been previously built are just ready to be operated by the students with minimal issues. The next item on our quality, or the next quality component within this phase, is our course management report tool. So this is an organization tool that Beth and I put together to help our program coordinators as they, step up and help us manage all of these online courses. This is just a quick tool for them to keep all of the courses that are delivered online within their programs and allows them to take notes and keep everything organized. As our course builder, our program coordinators know, Beth and I love templates. And as you guys probably have learned by now, we love templates. So giving this to them was just a little gift and thank you from us for them helping us keep everything in line. So the first item that we have is, just general information about the course. There's tons of courses within a program, so this helps them keep all of that straight. The next thing that we list is our faculty and adjunct instructors. So they list this out, as I said earlier, we have many courses that have several sections and several different instructors. So this allows us to keep track of when the course is beginning and who's actually teaching it. And that also helps us when we deploy those instructor surveys. So that way we're getting the responses from people that we want. The next item is listing out our required textbooks and material. As you guys know, we work in a university setting, and it's important for that communication with our library and publishers so they're aware what textbooks are going to be needed what semester. So by having this information listed here, it allows everyone to stay organized and prevent any issues from occurring. And then the last item is our course content review. And this is where the program coordinator, who is the subject matter expert for all of the stuff in that program, this is where they take their notes on the content. This is where they could put notes from instructor feedback based on the content. And this is the tool that they'll use to help determine when a course is reached a point that it needs to be revised, whether it's a major revision or a minor revision. This is the tool that helps them kind of collect their thoughts on where they feel the course content is at each term, and helps them let us know when we need to look to build a course into our build cycle because it's going to need to be edited or improved. So those three components really help us with our evaluate and revise phase. However, as I said, this phase is really going to be different depending on what resources you have, your organization, and what processes you typically do follow with your course builds and handing that stuff over to faculty. So next, Beth is going to wrap us up with our last stop on our hike here and explain to you our publish phase.
All right, thank you. And I'm not going to take too much time in this because I'm going to leave some time for questions at the end. But the publish phase, again, just like evaluate and revise, will totally vary based on your organization and your systems that you have in place. But the keys with this, we find, are providing opportunities for course content review and backup, managing and tracking data associated with the course, and to communicate updates. So we have found that this is the time, we have designed, developed, tested, revised a course, and now it's the time to make sure that we have the proper backup in place for the course content, and to make sure that we are now handing over the management of the course to our program coordinators. Like we've said before, Michele and I, it's just the two of us. We're not the content experts, although we try to be. But what we do find is that it's really important for us to hand this over at this point to our program coordinators, and who will work with the faculty to keep the courses continuously improving. It's important for quality to make sure that the course content is reviewed and managed by these experts in the field. And we are there to help them every step of the way as they need to get in and make some revisions with the course. Now, as stated earlier, this process, as I mentioned just a minute ago, it varies depending on the organization, your position role, your responsibilities. And we encourage you to sit down with your team or with the people that you work with and discuss this phase and possible processes as you go through. Basically, the takeaway that we have through this is connect that management of completed courseware to quality processes. Manage that data in the way that makes sense to your organization, whether it's a intense database, or we use, in our case, a Google sheet, spreadsheet is what we use. But the other key to the publish phase is staying in consistent coordination and communication with all of the stakeholders that are involved. And finally, Michele will lead us into our final activity on the trail.
All right. So again, we're hoping that all these templates help you, because we found things that certainly have helped us as we've created this process. So, we want to give back and help others that are probably in the situation where we were 2 years ago. So after going through this presentation, and believe me, we both fully know it's a lot of information in a short amount of time. Please share the emoji that represents how you feel about these resources, and if you think that you can use these tools at your organization. So let's see, hopefully we got some good emojis coming through. Yes, certainly some people are definitely excited, which is exactly how we feel about all of this. It's a lot to think of when you look at this whole process that we've created, but Beth and I had so much fun, especially as IDs with similar standpoints because of our similar education. We had so much fun creating this whole process and all of the tools that we have. So I'm very happy to see that many of you guys are excited and happy about using these tools at your organization. So now that you've learned about our quality online framework, we're going to come back to this poster here, and Beth is going to share our final stop, our unpacking trail stop number 7. But what we would like for you all to do is unpack your own copies of these tools that we have and have referenced throughout this presentation and repurpose them within your own organization. Each stop on this trail has several tools that explain the processes and resources that we've shared today. And they go a little bit further in depth than what we're able to get across within, the time restraints of this presentation. As I said, one of our goals with this whole presentation is that all of these tools become an open education resource and are used by our peers. And we hope that we can hear back from people that are using them. And if you find ways to improve them, please share or let us know how your experience goes as you do use these tools or deploy some of this information or adapt them at your own organization. Most of our content and associated templates are shared and licensed under Creative Commons. So please feel free to adapt them and use the materials within your own organization. That concludes our presentation. Thank you for the wonderful feedback with the chat. And now we would like to open up the door to any questions that you guys might have or curiosities that you might have about our process.
All right, I see a question in the chat. How do you embed mechanisms for extracting assessment data within the courses? Do you consider, oops, it just jumped down, sorry. Do you consider this in the overall design?
Yeah, so we as Beth explained earlier, we have that inner content and then the outer content. Currently, because of our LMS, we're not exporting our course content, our RISE content to the LMS. So we wanted to keep it an open source item that our students can access and work on at any point. Many of our students are teachers or coaches, so allowing them to be able to have the ease of accessing the content and working through it without submitting and having to log into our LMS, which isn't so user-friendly or cell phone or tablet friendly, was really important to us when we began this process. So what we do is we put all of our assessments within the LMS itself, and that's where students submit stuff. And that is what allows us to, track the user progress and allows our instructors to properly grade with, set rubrics and apply those consistencies to each one of our assessments. So I hope that answers that question. If not, Evan, please feel free to write in the chat and I'll try to respond to that a little bit better.
And also to that point, feel free to reach out to Michele and I via the QM profiles.
Yes.
We're happy to answer any questions you may have as you go through the documents.
Yeah. And this is something, it's so funny, as Beth and I, every time we revisit our process, we end up tweaking it a little bit more and a little bit more. So certainly too, as you look at the stuff, if you think of great ways or new things to implement, please feel free to reach out. We're always looking for ways to improve what we have and what we're delivering to our faculty and our students.
I already wrote down one idea that somebody shared.
Oh, great.
So
perfect.
Tweaking already. Yeah.
All right.
All right. Well, thank you all so much for your time today. And we're excited to have spent this time with you. And we hope you enjoy the rest of the conference today.
Thank you, Beth
Thank
and
you.
Michele. That was a great presentation.
Thank you.